Well, some of you were interested in seeing old versus new. What can historical weapons do to a modern helmet? And one of my viewers was kind enough to send in a motorcycle helmet for testing. This one is a hard ABS plastic shell with a polystyrene liner. I'll talk about the results afterwards. So, this is what happened. Alright, here we have Angry Bob. Here's a helmet to be tested. Okay, let's see how well this helmet will protect old Bob against the mace. Here is the impact. The helmet stood up pretty well. I mean, this is exactly what it's supposed to do, blunt impact, of course. That's what would happen to a person without a spine. You can tell by his expression he's definitely getting PTSD. Okay, so this helmet is amazingly resilient, but at this point from all the impact it is separated. Polystyrene liner, and the outside is ABS. Yeah, ABS plastic. Like, I didn't know that ABS plastic was this strong compared with the liner, or combined with the liner. I really cannot speak today. So here, it cut into the material. That is some good stuff right there. If I wanted to strike the top of the head at this height, I have to break my wrist position, which is not good, so instead I can just whack him like this. Screw it, I will do it. Yeah, that cut into it. There's not going to be amazing damage, of course. That cut into it pretty nicely. So I've got to say, I'm really impressed by this helmet here. It withstood all the damage. I mean, from the Warhammer spikes, you get quite a bit of damage where it digs into it. The falchion cut into it, actually surprisingly deeply, but nothing really major that would compromise the function of the helmet. So based on these results, some of you might think, hey, that's awesome. If you had one of these helmets on a medieval battlefield, you'd be perfectly fine. Nothing could harm you, unless somebody tried to stab you in the face, of course. But there are a few things to consider. So there is still a lot of blunt impact force delivered, and it has to go somewhere. Some of it is absorbed by the plastic and the liner and the padding, but some of it also is absorbed by the head, the neck, and that can cause some problems, of course. The difficulty is in estimating what kinds of damage would be involved. Even if you measure the G-force, and I have actually been looking into those chalk watch stickers and other G-force sensors, and it's a little tricky. For one, there is a lot of different information about that. For example, Mythbusters said that 50 G to the head would be lethal. However, I think that's prolonged exposure. Like if you're talking about a car crash, for example, if that amount of acceleration acts on the head for a couple of seconds, say, then yes, that can absolutely be lethal. However, I've seen studies done on football players that measured accelerations of as much as 200 G, and those guys survived. So also with regards to concussions, it's very difficult to figure out exactly what causes a concussion, how much force, because they found concussions at under 50 G. I think some were even 17 something G, but it can also be as much as 150. And that's because there are several factors involved in concussions. Newer research has shown that it's actually not the brain bouncing around inside the skull, but it's actually the brain tissue being stretched. And that's really difficult to quantify exactly. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the angle of the impact and how much force, and it depends on what direction the head moves in, and a variety of factors, really. I found this chart which goes to show that it's not as easy as just measuring the G-force, because you would also have to measure the time period. It makes a huge difference whether the G-force acts on the head or on whatever else, really, for 1 millisecond or 10. And you could, of course, go by the slow-mo footage, but I found that it's kind of difficult to exactly determine when the acceleration starts and when it stops. And of course, you have a bit of a bell curve. First, the acceleration increases, then it reaches its peak, and then it decreases again. So you can't just assume that the peak acceleration acts on it the entire time. So that makes it very difficult to figure out exactly what would cause what. Some of these strikes in the test, I'm sure, would be able to cause a concussion. But if you were to measure it, also considering the dummy, it is, like I've mentioned before, it is rather squishy. So when striking the helmet, there's a lot more compression of that dummy head compared to a skull. A skull just wouldn't squish in as much. And also, of course, there's the spine to consider. And it's not just this rubbery little neck flopping around. But, of course, then you also run into the problem, how do you measure when a neck injury would happen? Like, you'd have to come up with a pretty elaborate medical simulator that has synthetic bone and cartilage and all of that, because this, I think, is going to be the main issue with some of these strikes. Also, if I take a weapon of some kind, have the helmet on, and you know what, let me just do that with the spine rather than with the sharp edge. So if I whack myself with a blade, it's okay, actually. So I can strike myself. It's getting pretty loud, but I'm fine. I think if somebody struck me in this helmet with a sword, which I'm not going to try out because there's way too much risk of it glancing off and going in the face or in the shoulders. In fact, you've seen that in the footage. Sometimes the blade glances off the helmet due to the round shape, and then it goes down and goes into the shoulder or the neck or things like that, which can also be dangerous, of course. But technically, I think I'd be fine. Like, even a powerful strike with a sword, I don't think would necessarily knock me out. However, if I take the mace and even just tap the helmet lightly, like basically just dropping it on my head, is already unpleasant. If I give myself like even a light whack, especially from the side, This is a lot worse, I find, than straight down, actually. So some of those strikes, you know, a properly powered strike with a mace, no, I would just be knocked out if I were to take one of these. So, and also again, the neck could break. It's really difficult to say. So on the one hand, the helmet does offer surprisingly good protection, and also the padding is actually pretty good. I mean, this is what it's designed to do in case of a motorcycle accident. You know, it's supposed to prevent fracture of the skull. It can't really prevent concussion or neck injury, but fracturing of the skull, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. And yes, it would absolutely prevent that. Obviously, nobody goes into a medieval battle with a motorcycle helmet, but, you know, if suddenly the apocalypse breaks loose and people start arming themselves with baseball bats and whatever they find, then this would probably be a decent option. So, anyway, hope you found it entertaining, and thanks for watching.